So the MLB trade deadline is officially over. I mean, it's been over for a few days now. And as I do every single year, you know I'm dropping my grades for every single team in Major League Baseball based on the moves that they made at the deadline. I also have a bunch of other, kind of reflective trade deadline videos coming at you in the next few days, so keep an eye out for that. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out. Besides this simple plug of following me on my social media at GiraffeNeckMarc, links in the description, let's start talking about these grades. And of course, the first one's going to be the Colorado Rockies, who did absolutely nothing. In fact, they made one move, and it was extending Daniel Bard, who probably should have been traded. The Rockies get an F. They are the second dumbest organization in all of baseball, probably. They don't tend to make a lot of great moves, and I just can't believe they didn't sell anybody. Next up, I've got the Tampa Bay Rays. They've made a few moves. They brought in Jose Siri, Garrett Cleavinger, Jeremy Walker, and David Peralta, who was their big move. Honestly, a pretty underwhelming trade deadline for the Tampa Bay Rays. They never really go crazy. They never make a big splash, but this one in particularly feels underwhelming. It's a C for me. I can't really give the Rays much else. For a team that is competing for a playoff spot, I expect them to do a lot more. Next up, heading out back west to the Diamondbacks, and for them, this is going to be a D for me. Like Emmanuel Rivera, he hits the ball hard. That's something that he does do. But is he really that good? And you trade him for Luke Weaver, who I guess hasn't really performed well, but I've always been a Luke Weaver believer. That was horrible rhyming, and I apologize. Whatever, this trade deadline, they didn't get rid of a lot of guys, and I don't think the Diamondbacks are as bad as maybe their record shows, but they had an opportunity to boost that farm system even more, or try and get players that could help them just be straight up better. South side of Chicago, the Chicago White Sox, D. I swear, not all of these at the end are bad, but we do have a little bit of a stretch here. White Sox did almost nothing. They brought in Jake Diekman. That's the only reason it's not an F, is because Jake Diekman brings a nice left-handed arm to that bullpen, which is something that they need, but they didn't get better, really, and they didn't get worse. They just decided to continue to be the same mediocre team they've been all year, which is baffling to me. But that's what happens when you have Tony La Russa at the helm and you have Jerry Reinsdorf as the owner. I feel bad for you White Sox fans, because this is just accepting mediocrity and being like, well, we can compete for the AL Central and not do anything else, because even if they make the playoffs, they're not going anywhere. They can't. This team's not very good. Not the way it is right now. Another team that I don't think particularly had a good deadline, the Texas Rangers. I went and gave them a D as well. The Rangers only don't get an F because Antoine Kelly has some decent stuff in the past, and Mark Mathias, I don't even really know how to say his name. He's an interesting utility player, but I expected the Rangers to make more moves and get rid of those expiring contracts, anybody, just to kind of get some pieces back, because I don't think the Rangers are necessarily in a rebuild, but you could call it a retooling, because they do have some good pieces with Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, and a lot of the young prospects coming up, but they're not winning right now. So why kind of just stay the same? It's not my moves. One of the worst trade deadlines goes to the Cleveland Guardians, who basically did nothing. They got in Ian Hamilton, who's a prospect pitcher, but even then, not that big of a prospect. I know the Guardians are a pitching factory, but the fact that this team is also competing for the AL Central, trying to make the playoffs, and only brought in Ian Hamilton, along with DFA'd Franmil Reyes, which is crazy to me. I know he's not playing well, but a DFA, nobody wanted him at the deadline. That's crazy to me that not even the Mets would be interested. This is probably one of the worst deadlines. They also get an F, same as the Rockies. They basically did nothing. For the Pittsburgh Pirates, I actually liked some of the moves that they made. I by no means think this is one of the best deadlines, but the Pirates get a positive grade here, a C+. They traded away Dan Vogelback, and they brought in Colin Holderman, who's a pitcher with a lot of control. At the absolute worst, he's going to be a pretty solid reliever. At the best, maybe you get a guy who can be a back-end starter, which maybe the Pirates try and do. I don't know. I'm not quite sure what their plan is with Colin Holderman, but he was with the Mets. He was good, and I expect him to be good out in Pittsburgh. Johan Oviedo, probably going to be a decent reliever in the back end of this bullpen at some point for the Pirates in the future. And then I think their best pickup is Malcolm Nunez, who is a 21, 22-year-old Cuban prospect that they got from the Cardinals, who's mashing in AA, has big power potential. I like his stuff a lot. I thought that was their best pickup, and one of the reasons why I gave them a C+. The Oakland A's, big sellers, but realistically, they only kind of sold one big guy, and that was Frankie Montas and I guess Lou Trevino. The A's got back Carlos Guarate in another trade, and I believe that was for Austin Allen with the Cardinals. Ken Waldichuk, who's a good left-handed pitching prospect. Luis Medina, who's got some electric stuff. JP Sears, who has been at the major league level for the Yankees this year, looks like he's at least a good swingman. And Cooper Bowman. For me, the A's, I don't think had a spectacular deadline, but I do think they got a nice, decent haul back for Frankie Montas and Lou Trevino, so I gave them a B. Milwaukee Brewers, I mean, they didn't have a bad one, but they didn't have a good one, and it's just frustrating. I really do feel for you Milwaukee Brewers fans, because this team, nobody wants to win the Central. It feels like they're one of the teams that's actively trying not to break ahead, and when you see them trade a guy like Josh Hader, who I know is a free agent after this next season, so not this upcoming one, not this upcoming free agency, but the following season going into 2024, it's mind-blowing to me. They got Trevor Rosenthal, they got Matt Bush, good relievers, whatever. I know they have good stuff. Trevor Rosenthal coming back from thoracic outlet surgery, which is like tough to come back from. Matt Bush throws gas. Taylor Rogers they got back in the Josh Hader trade. Good left-handed reliever, but like not Josh Hader, not even close. Robert Gasser, left-handed pitching prospect. I'm not particularly that high on him. Esteury Ruiz, really good athlete, had some good numbers this year. Hasn't shown at the major league level just yet, but talented player. And then they got to Nelson Lamet and then DFA'd him. I don't even know what to do with this one. Like, David Stearns is smart. I wanted him running the Mets if it wasn't for Billy Epler, but I can't wrap my head around the idea of trading for Dinelson Lamet, who felt like he was probably the big piece in this trade, seemingly wasn't, and just saying, we don't want him anymore. Like, the Padres could just take him back. Why wouldn't they? Lamet's got to be someone you're interested in, unless he's got like roast beef elbow, which I guess is possible too, but weird. I gave them C-. They got worse. It's a team that's competing that got worse. Seattle Mariners. Now, talk about getting better. I think the Seattle Mariners had a really strong trade deadline. I went and gave the Mariners a straight up A. Kirk Casale, good backup catcher that they can add to Cal Raleigh, who's just been hitting home runs, and who cares when he plays decent defense back there. Matthew Boyd and Jake Lamb are also coming over to this team. Jake Lamb, good left-handed power bat off the bench. Matthew Boyd, I don't know what to do with him. I really don't. He just never particularly does look good, but everyone always says there's something inside Matthew Boyd that's going to pop at some point. Maybe it does with the Mariners. And then, of course, we have to talk about Luis Castillo. Now, did they give up a ton of prospects? Yes, but they have another year of control of Luis Castillo after this season, and he has shown he is one of the premier pitchers in baseball. Again, the fastball changeup combination is disgusting, especially when he's throwing 99. This is their big game pitcher that they've been desperately missing, and I do think a guy like Luis Castillo gives them a playoff berth and ends the drought. Let's go, Seattle. Great trade deadline. I gave you an A. The only other problem here is that the Houston Astros, your division rivals, the team ahead of you, also had a really good trade deadline. I gave them a slightly lower grade. I gave them an A-, but I still love what they did. Will Smith, left-handed reliever. Granted, he's not the same Will Smith that he once was, like even 2-3 years ago. He's definitely a shell of himself, but they addressed the need, which was a solid left-handed arm in that bullpen. They got one with Will Smith. Christian Vasquez, a big upgrade at their catcher position right now. Martin Maldonado, just not the same player that he once was. Same thing 2-3 years ago. Okay, he was fine, but the defense is slowing down a little bit. The bat's definitely slowed down. He's just old. He's a backup catcher now. Vasquez is much better. Trey Mancini, which is one of my favorite moves anybody made during the trade deadline. I love taking a guy like Trey Mancini, getting him out of Baltimore, which is now our pitcher's park, into Houston, those Crawford boxes. He's absolutely going to eat. We saw him hit that grand slam. What a match made in heaven for this guy. Also, shout out to Trey Mancini. Glad he gets to play meaningful baseball. And then they also got a prospect in Jaden Murray. I just love what they did. The Astros are one of the best organizations, one of the smartest teams. They know what they're doing, and it was a good deadline. A-. The Baltimore Orioles, they casually had a pretty decent trade deadline despite being a team that's actually pushing for the playoffs and getting worse. I actually liked the moves that they made because you had to get rid of Trey Mancini, get any value you could out of him, and they did. You had to trade Jorge Lopez. His value was probably the highest it's ever going to be, and let's be honest, the Orioles are ran by the former Astros GM or whatever he was, Mike Elias, and he knows how to build a really strong organization. He knows Jorge Lopez is expendable, and he got a bunch of prospects back from the Twins for him. The names, Kate Povich, Juan Rojas, Yenier Cano, Juan Nunez, and then they also got Brett Phillips in as a backup outfielder, Seth Johnson, who is a pitching prospect in Tampa, and Chase McDermott, who's got a lively arm from the Houston Astros organization. I gave them a B. I'm not going to give them an A. I know they got a lot of stuff back, but I still can't give a team that is technically competing for a playoff spot, which sounds absolutely crazy, an A grade when they got worse in the current season, even though I do think that this move is better for the future of the Orioles. I don't know. You guys are probably going to kill me for that one, but I like what Mike Elias did. I like what the Orioles are doing. Let's go Baltimore. It's so nice to see them trying. For the Miami Marlins, they made one move. They brought in Jordan Groshans in exchange for Zach Pop and Anthony Bass. I gave them a C. I thought the Marlins have the opportunity to do more. Jordan Groshans is technically a top 100 prospect in the pipeline right now, but that's a little bit up in the air where he really stands. After having a really strong first year, he's kind of just never really played particularly that well, despite having this top prospect status. Like, I think he's a fine player. I liked him, but this year has kind of turned me off a little bit to him, especially with how much he has struggled at AAA, just showing no power, which is kind of terrifying. And I don't really know if he's a shortstop. Like, he probably is a third baseman more likely. I think the ceiling has come down a little bit on Jordan Groshans. I wouldn't have him as one of my top 100 prospects right now in Major League Baseball by any means, but also in the same regard, they traded two relievers. Zach Pop's got some fun stuff. Anthony Bass has looked pretty good this year, and they got a guy who had some upside at one point, was a former first-round pick only back in 2018. I don't kill the Marlins for this one, but I'm not going to praise them just yet. Like, I need to see Jordan Groshans improve again. So I gave them a C. San Francisco Giants were active, but was it good? They traded away Darren Ruff. They got J.D. Davis, Thomas Szapucki, Nick Zwak, Carson Seymour, and then they also got in some other trades Michael Streifeller, Andy Thomas, Tristan Peters, Ford Proctor, Ben Bowden, and Dixon Machado. This is the most Giants trade deadline I could have imagined. They traded away a few guys that they didn't really need on this team anymore. They replaced it with younger, more controllable guys with prospect status. Thomas Szapucki is going to come up and probably be a pretty decent left-handed reliever for them at the absolute worst. J.D. Davis, younger Darren Ruff. There's things here that work, but overall, it didn't make the Giants any better, and it didn't make them any worse either. I gave them a C-. It's just whatever, honestly, at the end of the day. These are all trades we'll probably look back at in 2 or 3 years and be like, oh yeah, how did we not see that Tristan Peters was going to be a stud? How did we not know that Carson Seymour was going to become a lights-out closer? Like, it's going to be one in hindsight. Speaking of which, my favorite team, the New York Mets, I think actually had a better trade deadline than a lot of people are giving them credit for, and I say a lot of people, a lot of Mets fans. Mets fans were disappointed because there was not one particularly big-name player, but they brought in a lot of good talent. Darren Ruff, Michael Givens, Tyler Naquin, Philip Deal, Michael Perez, whatever, and Daniel Vogelback. Beef, because that's the official name we gave him on the Mets Stuff podcast. Link in the description. Official podcast of the New York Mets. I host it. Found out some people that watch me that are Mets fans didn't know that. Check it out. It's my Mets podcast. We call Daniel Vogelback beef. I mean, Vogelback, I love him. The dude absolutely rakes. Great plate discipline, especially against righties. He's fantastic. Tyler Naquin, same thing. The Mets are using the platoon here. Naquin plays against the righties, Canha against the lefties. It's a good matchup. And Darren Ruff plays against the lefties. Takes that J.D. Davis role. Michael Givens is an improvement on whoever our last few guys were in the bullpen, whether it was Steven Nagosic, Yohan Lopez, Adonis Medina, Tommy Hunter. I love Tommy, but Michael Givens is better. And then Deal and Perez are just minor league depth. I actually think the Mets had a fine deadline. They got better, and they were already a good team. I gave them a B. I'd love to know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Am I being a homer? Am I being biased? Or do you agree with me that the Mets had a fine deadline? If you're a Tigers fan, look away. You probably had the worst trade deadline. I'm not going to say the worst. One of the 3 worst, probably. One of the 4 worst at the most. The Tigers traded away like nobody. They traded away Robbie Grossman and Michael Fulmer and got basically nothing back. Sawyer Gipson-Long and Chris Anglin. F. I don't like. It's just they had so many pieces they could have moved and they didn't. I don't know why. Chicago Cubs thought they were going to trade Wilson Contreras. Thought they were going to trade Ian Happ. Didn't trade either of those guys. Still did make some moves, though. They brought in Ben Brown from the Phillies in a David Robertson trade. Ben Brown, not a top 100 prospect, but this guy has got some helium right now. I mean, look up his stuff. He's had a phenomenal year in Double-A. Big, tall, right-handed pitcher. He's actually legit good. Like this pickup. That's probably my favorite pickup they got. They also got Saul Gonzalez from the Mets, Hayden Wesneski from the Yankees, Ryanel Espinal, and Zach McKinstry. It's whatever. Like, I like Ben Brown. I like Hayden Wesneski. That's why I give it a C+, but the Cubs could have gotten so much. I think they just asked for too much for guys like Wilson and Ian Happ, and teams were like, nah, we good. Another National League Central team, the St. Louis Cardinals, made some moves, of course. Jordan Montgomery in one of the weirder, more controversial trades of the deadline. Austin Allen, backup catcher. Jose Quintana and Chris Stratton came over from the Pirates to help with the starting pitching and relief. And Jojo Romero for Edmundo Sosa. I like the Cardinals deadline. It's boring. It's what they do every single year. It seems like they love getting left-handed pitchers that throw slow with the name that starts with the letter J. They did it last year with John Lester, and there's one other guy I'm forgetting. Jay Happ. Yeah, I think they got Jay Happ too, didn't they? Jordan Montgomery just pitched a phenomenal game against his former team. I gave them a B. I think it was a pretty solid deadline, but they didn't improve spots where I thought they could have done more. I think it was safe, really, at the end of the day. They got better in a safe way. Kansas City Royals brought in a bunch, but what was the quality? Samad Taylor from the Blue Jays, Max Castillo, Brent Rooker, Luke Weaver, who's probably the more interesting guy here in terms of major league players, Anthony Mishowitz, I think I pronounced that right, Beck Way, I actually like him from the Yankees, TJ Sikkema, and Chandler Champlain. This was a deadline that they had. These are players that are now on the Royals team. I thought they were going to make more moves. I expected some bigger names to come back, maybe even move a guy like Hunter Dozier. I mean, they finally moved Whit Merrifield, so for that, thank you, Kansas City, for getting him out of there. I give the Royals like a C+. It's a lot of guys that, like, really, is there a lot of ceiling here? Probably not. Toronto Blue Jays, decently active. Whit Merrifield, I just mentioned, came there. Seems like he's vaccinated. Zach Pop and Anthony Bass from the Miami Marlins. And then Mitch White and Alex DeJesus from the Los Angeles Dodgers. I gave the Blue Jays a B-. I like the addition of Whit Merrifield. Utility man, can play everywhere. I know he's not hitting well, but I imagine in a much more protected lineup with winning around him, I think he's going to be better. He's still too talented to, like, actually stink, I think. Zach Pop and Anthony Bass have really exciting stuff out of the bullpen. bullpen. I'm always for strengthening your pen. Blue Jays did that. And then Mitch White is kind of their new Ross Stripling-ish, in which he's kind of boring, doesn't do anything particularly awesome, but he's going to be productive, and he's going to give you innings, and he's going to be a little bit of a swing man-ish. And Alex DeJesus is a nice pickup too. So yeah, B-, C+, whatever you think. I'm going to go B- here for Toronto north of the border. For the Atlanta Braves, it was looking like a horrible deadline until they swooped in and got Raisel Iglesias for Tucker Davidson and Jesse Chavez. I mean, that's highway robbery. How is Perry Minasian? Does he have a job? Raisel Iglesias, good player. Jake Odorizzi didn't look particularly strong in his start against the Mets today, which is when I'm recording this, but he's fine. He's a depth starting pitching piece for this team. Robbie Grossman crushes left-handed pitching, which I guess they need a little help with. I don't know. He's their backup outfielder. And they brought back Ire Andrianza. I gave it a B. Raisel Iglesias saved this deadline for me, in my opinion. Cincinnati Reds, arguably one of the best trade deadlines. Now, it sucks because they're selling, which is not fun, but boy, did they get a haul back. Spencer Steer, Steven Hajar, Christian Encarnacion Strand from the Minnesota Twins. All three of those guys really, really strong prospects. Encarnacion Strand from Oklahoma State absolutely mashing in the minors this year. Spencer Steer, a guy who's crept into top 100s lists. And Steven Hajar is a pitcher with a lot of exciting stuff. They got Victor Acosta from the Padres for Brandon Drury, who Victor Acosta just a year ago was one of the most hyped international prospects from the complex leagues last summer. So awesome for the Reds. Austin Romine, whatever, players to be named later. And then, of course, the big Luis Castillo trade where they got Noelvi Marte, sick. Edwin Arroyo, sick. Levi Stout, good. Andrew Moore, good. And then even with the Mets, Jose Acuna and Hector Rodriguez, they brought in a ton of prospects to deepen up that farm system, which is already one of the better ones in baseball. I love the moves that they made. If you're going to stink, at least be horrible. And it seems like the Reds are trying to be horrible while also strengthening the farm. So I give them props for that, A. But also just try and be good. Try and win. That's more fun. One of the teams they traded with, the Minnesota Twins, also I think had one of the best trade deadlines. They brought in Tyler Mahle, who is going to be phenomenal in Minnesota. There's no doubt. Leaving Cincinnati for a guy who's a little bit of a fly ball pitcher, getting him out of there. Like, his road numbers have always been incredible, and he's going to pitch in Minnesota, which plays, I think, about neutral, if not pitcher friendly more. That's a huge plus for him. Michael Fulmer, really good arm out of the pen, throwing the slider a lot more. He's a lot more effective. Jorge Lopez, really good out of the pen. And then they got Sandy Leon as a backup catcher. I think they had a really awesome trade deadline. That's going to be an A for me. That's a team who's in the AL Central, who's not content with the small lead that they have over the Guardians and the White Sox, and they're like, oh, we want to make the playoffs, and not only do we want to make the playoffs, we want to win. Let's go, Twins. Good moves. Now for the Los Angeles Angels, who I couldn't believe they traded away Raisel Iglesias for Tucker Davidson, Jesse Chavez. We talked about that already. They then traded Noah Syndergaard away for Mickey Moniak and Yadiel Sanchez, which, like, Mickey Moniak? It's not 2015. It's not 2016. The dude has come up and just hasn't shown much. I don't understand that. I know they got rid of Brandon Marsh, who they traded for Logan O'Hoppe, who O'Hoppe's a good catching prospect, but even then, that feels like Brandon Marsh's lowest he's going to be. I know he hasn't played well, but I do like Marsh as a player a little bit more than I like O'Hoppe right now. Not particularly crazy about this deadline. I think this is a pretty horrible one. I'll give him a D because O'Hoppe at least is good, and Mickey Moniak is at least young-ish, young adjacent, but my God, what a horrible deadline. Philadelphia Phillies got two of those former Angels in Noah Syndergaard and Brandon Marsh. They also brought in David Robertson from the Cubs and Edmundo Sosa from the Cardinals. I like the move of Edmundo Sosa. He's a competent middle infielder, something they haven't had in a while, especially at the shortstop position. They DFA'd Didi. That guy stinks. It's time to see him go. Brandon Marsh, still young, still plays a good center field. Better than Odubel Herrera, no doubt. Improvement. David Robertson, good reliever. I wanted him on the Mets. Good pickup by the Phillies. And Noah Syndergaard, while isn't the same Noah Syndergaard we once saw back with the Mets, he's showing signs that he's getting closer and closer. And for a Phillies team who always needs pitching help, they got some with Noah Syndergaard. So I have to give them a B+, almost an A. I think there was better players, and I can't really put them on the same level as the Twins, who I think just got better versions of exactly what the Phillies did. But this is still a really good deadline for a team that's going to make the playoffs, and I don't know if I really want to run into them with that decent pitching, good hitting. It's kind of scary. I think the Phillies' fourth place thing's over for now. Final five here. We've got the Boston Red Sox up next. D, you traded for Eric Hosmer. Why? Is he going to start to hit the ball in the air? Probably not. So he's probably not going to be very good. Max Ferguson and Corey Rozier came over as well. They did get a decent few prospects from the Astros for that Christian Vasquez trade in Emmanuel Valdez and Wilyer Abreu. I really like Emmanuel Valdez. He showed some stuff last year that makes him exciting. Wilyer, it's yet to be seen just yet. They brought in Reese McGuire and Tommy Pham, who are two of the more controversial players in Major League Baseball in terms of incidents. You can just Google Reese McGuire and Google Tommy Pham. You'll be able to find those. I don't need to tell you about them right now. And Abraham Almonte. Figure it out, Boston. What are you doing? I don't think he got better, and I think he might have got worse. New York Yankees. Good deadline. Clayton Beeter. Harrison Bader, players to be named later. And then we got some big names here. Frankie Montas, Lou Trevino, Scott Efros, and Andrew Benintendi. And I know you're saying, Scott Efros, big name, what are you talking about? He had some disgusting stuff with the Cubs. He's going to be the next Clay Holmes type guy where you're like, who is this? Why is he so good? Oh, the Yankees pitching factory? Matt Blake fixed them? Makes sense. That's going to be Scott Efros. Lou Trevino, we see his stuff. He's been good in the past. He's going to be fine in New York. Frankie Montas, ace. He's an ace. I'm just going to say it. He's got ace stuff. He's going to be great behind Garrett Cole. And Andrew Benintendi, while he's stunk so far, I think is better than Joey Gallo. So that's an improvement for them. It was an A for me. I think the Yankees had a good one. Clayton Beeter, by the way, good prospect. Harrison Bader, good center fielder with control. This is a really good deadline. A shocking one here for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Going to stick with their same letter as their first letter of their name, D+. Joey Gallo came in, who, Joey Gallo is going to be great in the second half. So this is going to bite me in the butt, giving it a D+, but he's probably the biggest piece they got because the rest was a player to be named later, Nick Frasso, Moises Brito, Herman Tapia, and Chris Martin, who's a bullpen guy. The Dodgers know what they're doing. They're smart, but they just didn't make any move that actually particularly, I think, makes them better right now, and they're trying to win a World Series this year. The Washington Nationals, it's an F, but actually, it's probably like a B+, A-. It's an F because you traded Juan Soto. There's no world you should ever trade Juan Soto. It shouldn't happen. He's a generational talent. Dude's up there with Ted Williams in stats at the start of his career, one of the best hitters ever. But the reason I say it's probably like a B+, A- because you did get a lot back. It's never enough, but you did get a lot back. Luke Voit, C.J. Abrams, Robert Hassel III, Mackenzie Gore, James Wood, Harlan Susana, and Trey Harris. Trey Harris coming in the Ire Adrianza trade. Luke Voigt's going to play first base, whatever, who cares? Luke Voigt's irrelevant in this trade. C.J. Abrams was a top prospect before he lost his prospect status this year. I still have faith in him of being a very, very good major league player. Sick athlete, going to be able to play shortstop or center field, probably at a pretty elite level defensively. And if he gets a little more power and a little more discipline, he could be a really, really dangerous bat at the plate. Robert Hassel III is my favorite guy in this entire trade. I think he's got superstar potential. He's still a little bit young, still a little bit raw, but what we've seen from him so far in 2-ish years in minor league baseball is really impressive. RH3's my favorite guy in this, along with James Wood, who I think has the potential to be another superstar. He just has a lot more variance in how good he's going to be because of his size, but the sheer power that we've seen from James Wood at the young age of 19, 20 years old, it's incredible. He's awesome. Mackenzie Gore has the chance to be a frontline starter, for sure. We know about him. And Harlan Susana was the top international pitching prospect, I think, last year or the year before. So they got good stuff. It's just you traded Juan Soto. It's never going to be enough. And then last but certainly not least, we have those San Diego Padres who had the best trade deadline of all, A+. You brought in Juan Soto and Josh Bell, which that alone, A+. You brought in Juan Soto. He's one of the 3 best players in baseball, and you added him to Manny Machado, Tatis, who's getting healthy at some point, Cronenworth, a good pitching staff, a good team, a winning team. I don't want to face the Padres at all. It makes winning the National League East that much more important because whoever loses is going to play the Padres. You don't want to do that. They also got Jay Groom from the Red Sox, who was a former first-round pick, former top prospect, and that was for Eric Hosmer. They brought in Brandon Drury, who's a really, really, really good depth piece and a really good bat, crushed in Cincinnati. Cam Gallagher as a backup catcher, and did I mention they brought in Josh Hader, one of the best relievers in baseball, if not the best? I know he's had a little bit of a rough time this year, but are we giving up on a guy who still strikes out 45% of the batters he faces? That would be stupid. That would be animal. Josh Hader's sick. This deadline, chef's kiss. Hate to see it as a Mets fan, but boy, oh boy, it must be an exciting time in San Diego to get Juan Soto, Josh Bell, Josh Hader, and you have Tatis coming back. You have Machado. That's so cool. That's so sick. That's so sick. So those are my MLB trade deadline grades for every team in Major League Baseball. I'd love to know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Did you think the Padres had the best? Did you think the Rockies? Did you think the Tigers had the worst? I'd love to know what you're thinking down in the comments below. Drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it, as well as subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of the content coming at you. Follow me on all my social media at GiraffeNeckMarc. Links are in the description down below. Thank you guys for watching. You know the drill from here on out. YouTube recommends you watch this video. This is my most recent upload. Click through those if you have not yet seen them. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all. I hope, we're going to see you tomorrow for another video. Bye.